No, it's Azoy. It's Parshas Behar. The Torah begins by Yedaber Hashem El Moshe Behar Sinai Lemor. So Hakadosh Baruch Hu spoke to Moshe at Har Sinai, and that's where he told him the Parsha of Shemitah. So we all know Rashi says in the name of the Torah Koyanim, Ma Inyan Shemitah Eitzel Har Sinai. Why does it? Why is Shemitah next to Har Sinai? Meaning, why does the Torah have to say that the mitzvah of Shemitah was said at Har Sinai? V'haloi kol ha-mitzvahs nemru mi-Sinai. All mitzvahs were said in Sinai. Ela ma Shemitah nemru kloloi sehen uprotoi sehen v'dikdu kehen mi-Sinai. Just like Shemitah, not only the general rules, but also the details and also the dikdukim, maybe the fine points, were said in Sinai. So af kol ha-mitzvahs kulon nemru kloloisehem uproteisehem v'dikdukehem mi-Sinai. Rashi is in a very unusual way. Rashi says v'nireh li shekach pirusha. In other words, this Teres Kainim needs an explanation, and Rashi offers an explanation, meaning because l'chayre, how do we know that Shemitah was Nemru Kloloi Seyen Uprotoi Seyen V'dikdu Kehem Misinai? The parsha doesn't give us the Protoi Seyen V'dikdu Kehem. So who tells us that? It says Behar Sinai, but maybe only the mitzvah, the general rules, maybe not the details. Well, Rashi says that since Shemitah is a mitzvah that wasn't repeated in Arvois Moyov, as other mitzvahs that are repeated in Chumash Dvarim before Klal Yisrael enters Eretz Yisrael. So we know that it must be that everything about Shemitah was already said at Har Sinai. And from here we learn to all other mitzvahs. The Ramban asks, who gives us the right to learn from here to all other mitzvahs? Maybe only this mitzvah that wasn't repeated in Arvais Moyav. So all its details were given in Sinai, but maybe other mitzvahs that were repeated in Arvis Moyav, only the Klolos were Nemar B'Sinai, and the Protos and the Dikdukim were Nemar Ba'oyel Moyed. So the Cheskuni explains that since this mitzvah hasn't been repeated in Arvis Moyav, it didn't need to say Behar Sinai, because we would have understood without the Torah telling us that where else was it said? It must have been said Behar Sinai. So since the Torah writes Behar Sinai, it's coming to teach us that from this mitzvah we should learn to all other mitzvahs that Nemru Kloloiseim Uproteiseim V'dikdukeim Mi-Sinai. In any case, l'chara, we need to think about why is it important that we should know where the protim and the dikdukim of all the mitzvahs were given. What difference does it make if it was given in Sinai, it was given in Aris Moav, if it was given in somewhere else? Wherever it was given, we're mechoyev to be Mekayim. So I want to suggest that this is coming to emphasize that the dikdukim and the protim are no less important than the general mitzvah, because people have a tendency to attribute chashivas, significance, meaning to the general idea, and to consider the small details to be really small and insignificant. You know, v'hoyo l'chol la'ois al yodcha u'l'toitofos bein einecha ki v'choizek yad hoitziyacha Hashem mitzrayim. So the tefillin are meant to remind us of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and as we say, to instill in us the belief that loy hakoyach v'hamemsholo b'elyonim u'vatachtoinim lasois b'hem kirtzoinoi. So we could identify with a general idea, we could relate to that. But it's hard for us to relate to the fact that the tefillin have to be perfectly square. And if they're not perfectly square, you weren't mekayim the mitzvah. Or that if one ois in one of the parshas that's inside the tefillin is touching another, and the ice is not completely mukav gvil, so the tefillin apostle. I mean, we don't really feel that defeats the whole purpose and it undoes the whole idea of but the truth is that kol ha-mitzvahs kulon nemru kloloisen uprotoisen v'dikdukem Sinai. It's a package deal. If there's one detail missing, one dikduk missing, I lost the whole thing. There's no difference between the klal, the general rule, the big idea, and the detail and the dikduk. Just like let's say a simple screw. One simple screw is missing in a spaceship. I mean, it's the whole thing will go up in flames. Yeah, even though it's a whole sophisticated, advanced system, right? But nevertheless, the small detail makes all the difference. And so also in mitzvahs, it's not just about the kloloi sehen, but it's also about the protoi sehen v'dikdukeim. The truth is that it goes much further than that, because we need to understand that what seems in our eyes to be big is not necessarily so. And what seems to be in our eyes small is not necessarily so. We're not in the position to evaluate. Like Chazal say, have a zohir b'mitzvah kala kebechamura she'ein ato yoidea matan schoron shel mitzvahs. In other words, what seems to you important and what seems to you not so important doesn't define what things really are in Ruchnius. I mean, we think that the general direction of our life is more important than one Maisa, than one Dibur, than one Machshava. As long as we're moving in the right direction, so the small details are not that important. But the truth is that by the Rebbeinu Shalom, the entire project of Brias HaOlam and the Shit Alfei Shnin, the Hava Alma, is not even Kechaloim Yov compared to eternity. So, in as much as we accept that the Rebbeinu Shalom takes an interest in the big picture, we need to accept by the same token that he's interested in the minute details. As we say, Hashove umashve cotton kigodl. Compared with the infinite, I mean, the number 1 and a billion is just as far. In other words, Lagabi the Ein Sof, this whole entire world is insignificant. So, in as much as the Rebbeinu Shalom takes an interest, he takes an interest in every individual. In as much as he takes an interest in every individual, he takes an interest in every detail of our life. We say every day, Bainei Yerushalayim Hashem, Nidchei Yisrael Yechanes, Haroifei L'shvurei Leiv, Umechabesh La'atzvaisam, Moine Mispar L'koichavim L'kulam Shemois Yikra. So Bainei Yerushalayim Hashem, Nidchei Yisrael Yechanes, that's about how the Rebbeinu Shalom is directing the history of the world and bringing it to the ultimate redemption. Moine Mispar L'koichavim, the Kulam Shemois Yikra is about how the Rebbeinu Shalom is in charge of all nature. But in between these two psukim, we insert Haroifei L'shvurei Leiv, Umechavish La'atzvaisam. To the Rebbeinu Shalom, it's no less important to heal one broken heart of one individual than the entire project of Bainei Yerushalayim Hashem Nitzchei Yisrael Yechanes Haroifei L'shvurei Leiv and my name is Balakechavim L'kulam Shemois Yikra. We say Ram al kol goyim Hashem al hashamayim kevoidoi. Mika Hashem Elokeinu hamagbihi lo shoves hamashpili lirois bashamayim uvoretz. Says the Malbim that the goyish perception is that Ram al kol goyim Hashem, he's high above there, and therefore al hashamayim kevoidoi. That's his glory is on the heavens. In other words, he says, Ein kvoidoi lahashgiach b'shvolim. That it's not lefich voidoi that he should take an interest in us lowly beings. That's the perception of Ram al kol goyim Hashem al hashamayim kvoidoi. But we say, Mika Hashem Elokeinu hamakbihi lo shavas. We say he's much greater than that. He's so great that he's mashpili lirois bashomayim uvaris. That being mashgiach bashomayim is not more lefich voidoi. If he takes an interest in shomayim, he takes an interest in Oretz also. If he takes an interest in the big things, he takes an interest in the small things, because the big things are nothing bigger in his eyes. So we see HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks Moshe Rabbeinu to go to Paroi to redeem Klal Yisrael, and Moshe Rabbeinu is not willing to take upon himself the mission. Not that we can understand how Moshe Rabbeinu was arguing with the Rebbeinu Shalom, but nevertheless, obviously there's a message. The pasuk says in Shemos, "Ba'ayoyme Moshe el Hashem bi'adoini." Loi ish dvorim anoichi, gam mitmoil, gam mishilshoim, gam mi'oz dabercho alav decho, ki kvad peh, ukvad lo shoin anoichi. So Rashi says, Lo madnu, shekol shiva yomim, hoya HaKadosh Baruch Hu mefates Moshe, besneh, leilach b'shlichusay. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was trying to convince Moshe for 7 days that he should take it upon himself. Because we say, mitmoil, shilshoim, mi'oz dabercho, harei shloisho. And gamin ribuyim hein, harei shisha. In other words, gam is another 3 days. So it's 6 days, and the day that they're talking is already the 7th day. And then Rashi says, "V'cholze." Why was Moshe Rabbeinu refusing? Sheloi hoya roitze little gedula ala harenochiv. Shoya godel mimenu. He didn't feel it was appropriate that he should go ahead of Aharon, who's his older brother. So maybe Aharon will be hurt. Maybe he won't, he doesn't want to hurt Aaron's feelings. So this is really a fascinating thing. We're talking about redeeming the entire Jewish people. We know already all the way from the beginning, Moshe Rabbeinu, Vayigdal Moshe, Vayetze Elecha, Vayar B'sivloisam, Nosan Einov, V'liboy, Liois, Meitzar Aleim. Moshe Rabbeinu was pained by the suffering of Klal Yisrael. And here was an opportunity to redeem the Jewish people and put an end to all their suffering. But nevertheless, Moshe Rabbeinu, as Avi Chazal say, Tzadikim Doimim Leboiram, Moshe Rabbeinu is not willing to do this big project. Yeah, if there's one detail over here, if there's one individual that might be hurt, so he's not going forward. So, which means that the Ovdei Hashem know that there's nothing big and there's nothing small. Everything counts. Everything makes a difference. We say in the Mincha of Shabbos, we say, Menuchas Ava Unedova, Menuchas Emes Ve'emuna, Menuchas Sholom V'Shalva, Hashkeit V'Vetach, Menucha Shleima, She'ato Roitze Bo, Yakiru Vonecho V'Yedu Ki Mi'itcha Hi Menuchasam Va'al Menuchasam Yikdishu Hashemecha. So my father, Zechron Livracha, said that a day of rest once a week is something that everybody understands is a good thing. Umas Olam also understand the importance of taking a break. But the menucha of Shabbos is a menucha shleima. It's a complete menucha, meaning if I go from the Rishus HaYochid to the Rishus HaRabim with a tissue in my pocket, I could become mechuyev skila. So the pshat is, it's a menucha shleima. And therefore, menucha shleima she'ato roitze bo, that menucha that the Rebbeinu Shalom asks of us, yakiru vanecha v'yedu ki me'itcha hi menuchasam. That's how we recognize that this is divine. It's not something that is just, about taking a break. Yakiru vanecha v'yedu ki me'itcha hi menuchasam va'al menuchasam yakdishu es shemecha. On the pasuk in this week's parasha, v'shofso ha'oretz Shabbos la'Hashem, Rashi says, L'Shem Hashem. K'moy shenemar b'Shabbos Bereishis. What's L'Shem Hashem? I mean, what would I think? L'Shem HaGrizim? I mean, what are we being taught over here? That Shavsor is Shabbos LaHashem, L'Shem Hashem, L'Shem Hashem. No, the emes is that in Shemitah, Shabbos Oretz, there's also there's a benefit for the land. The Cheskuni says, "Koloimar loy kavanoscha lohoivira kedei letaiva." Your kavanah shouldn't be to leave the land, shvisas haaretz, in order that it should give off better. It should produce more produce next year. Kedei letaiva. Look at the lasuis mitzvahs HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So therefore, in Shemitah also, just like in Shabbos, just like in the Shabbos Bereishis, just like in the Shabbos of every week, there's an emphasis that it should be LaHashem. So also in the Shemitah, in the Shabbos Haaretz, there's an emphasis that it should be L'Shem Hashem. In other words, that's the idea of Menucha Shleima. She'ata roitze bo yakiru vonecha v'yedu ki mi'itzcha hi menuchosam. And when it's me'itzcha, then we know that big and small doesn't make a difference. Every detail is important. You know, in Sfiras Omer, we count also the days and also the weeks, as the Gemara says in Menachos Amar Abaye, mitzvah lemimni yoime, u mitzvah lemimni shvui. You have to count the days and count the weeks. I mean, everybody knows that in a week there's 7 days, and 7 days constitute a week. So what's the idea of talking it out that it's Shiva Yomim? It also happens to be Shavua Echad. And then we go on, Shemaina Yomim, so it's Shavua Echad, V'Yom Echad. I mean, it's self-evident. I mean, it doesn't need to be explained. But, you know, we were talking about the importance of the pratim and the dikdukim. Details matter. But there's also a danger, that sometimes people become so focused, so caught up with the small details that they lose sight of the general picture, The paying attention to details is it can't come at the expense of losing sight of the general big idea. Just like the big general idea is not allowed to bring us to be mezalzel in the details. Just like in Sinai, not just the klolois were said, not just the general rules, but also the pratim and the dikdukim, also the details and the fine points. So also, we weren't told in Sinai just the pratim and the dikdukim without the klolois. In other words, we have to have both. You know, they say sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. You get so caught up with the trees that you lose sight of the forest. So the challenge is to see them both. I mean, the big picture and the small picture. It could be that that's the idea of mitzvah lemimni yoime and mitzvah lemimni shvur. On one hand, we need to give our fullest attention to every single day. The week should not overshadow the particular day. Every single day counts. But at the same time, we need to remember that the one day is part of a whole. Through the single days, we create a week. The particular day is part of a general direction. We shouldn't get lost in the details and lose sight of the big picture. We need to see both the trees and the forest through one day at a time. But it's part of something bigger. It's meant to lead us somewhere. We need to have both. And that's the mitzvah lemimni yoime u mitzvah lemimni shvui. And it's all about balance. Rabbi Say, having said that, I wish you a good Shabbos.